Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Made by Google open house. Thank you so much for joining us. Are you all having a good time? Woo, all right. Playing with the product, seeing our new Pixels or Google Homes or Slates, it's exciting. Some of you may have been around earlier to meet some of our guests, but I'm just going to reintroduce everybody. So for the new people, they know who everybody is. So we have designer Alex Proba, who designed a lot of our artwork in this cool mural behind us. Woo, yeah, round of applause for everybody. We have photographer Tepfer that shot a lot of the photography that you'll see in the space. And we have Sade Lythcott, who is the CEO of the National Black Theater here in New York City and friend of Cleo Lade, who also helped design this space. Welcome. So we've got a lot of different kinds of people up here. We've got, a designer who works in many different mediums. We've got a photographer. We've got a CEO and leader of a theater space. And I got the pleasure of speaking with all three of them tonight. And one of the things that popped out to me in talking to all of you is that you're all so fearless. Alex, you are jumping into different mediums you've never worked with before. Lauren, you're up and coming and just kind of like finding your voice and trying new things, and you want to venture into film. And Sade, you started in one place and kind of took over your mother's theater and have been, making it super successful for the last decade. So I guess I just want to start our conversation off like what it's like as a creator and leader and maker to just try something unknown. So anyone wants to jump in and talk about that, feel free.
It's like a learning curve because in the beginning I was I had big fear in showing my work, sharing my work. I always thought people were going to judge me and it's going to be embarrassing because it's not perfect. And I think once I started failing, and that's actually the moment that I would grow and be like, no, what did I do wrong? And that's the moment that pushed me to do it better or different. So I feel like just making and creating constantly is the only way to lose that fear, in my opinion. But you agree?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think the most growth I've seen personally for myself is the moments where I'm uncomfortable and where I'm confused and freaked out and worried about the future or what's happening. I think those are the best times to grow as a person because it is really scary and uncomfortable, but you are able to push yourself in ways that you didn't think were possible, and it comes out really awesome usually at the end. Most of the time, or it turns out bad and then you learn something new from it, but yeah.
I think also just we're living in a time where we can't afford not to be brave and fearless. And that, the intersection of taking risks, being willing to be vulnerable enough to fail, because the other side of that is what you gain from the lesson, from the growth. I think that art today, more than ever, really a part of the creative process is being brave and fearless. And because what we as creators and makers of things are actually doing on a day-to-day basis is shaping the way the world gets viewed. If someone comes up against your photography or your art, that, whether it's minimal or in a very big way, shifts and changes people's lens in which they see and experience things. So the more fearless and unapologetic we can be in the way that we kind of capture things and share things, I think we do a service to everybody.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
And I don't know if any of you found this, but sometimes I find myself, when I'm not doing Google, I'm writing, I'm a comedian and performer, and I'm putting things down on paper that I maybe have done before or tried before, and I know works, but it also somehow feels too safe. And then I look at it and I'm like, this is not good enough. And I don't know if you guys have found that too, trying something, you're like, oh, I've been here, and now I just want to try something totally new. If any of you have a story about that, that'd be interesting. I know you've worked with different mediums, trying different experimental theater.
Yeah, I think that, I think we know, to your first question, I think the playing it safe, there's a sniff factor to everything where you're like, this is commercially viable, but it feels like it's killing my soul. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And more we're in a world that people can tell what's BS, people can tell what's for other audiences, and if it resonates with you personally, chances are it will connect and resonate with other people. And I just think the trend what we're seeing, whether it's in comedy or if it's theater, it's really taking our personal stories and finding a way to translate it for our audience.
Yeah, and what I also learned is just like with one of my projects that I did a couple of years ago was that I shared work because that was the point of the project. It's just like to do it every day and share it. And I have like tons of posters that that you've seen in the space that I actually like, but I have a ton of them that I personally don't love, and it's weird to me because there's people that will buy it or request it, and because they feel something completely different than I do. And there's just like a couple where I'm like, no, you can't buy it. It's never gonna happen. But then others, I'm just like letting go. I'm like, okay, they see something different than I see, and they feel different about it than I do. And in the end of the day, I created it, so it is part of me. But I just like, you just have to let go and just like try things out. And it's like a different thing, obviously with Google and creating this court was incorporating Google's colors and the hardware colors, but they were so close to my colors, so it was like super easy to do that. But often you have like brands that want something that you don't want, and then it's like your decision on if you go for it or not. But if it's your personal work, I feel like you have to learn that some people might like it and some people won't,
Totally.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
I think going off of that, one thing I've realized as a creative person, which I'm sure you've totally experienced and you kind of explained it now, growing as an artist, it's so easy to look back on something you made, whether it be like 1 year ago or last week, and you are like, oh, that's not something I would do right now. I don't love that. I don't want that to be a part of me or my artist or whatever, my vision as an artist. And it's interesting because we as artists are so interested in the next thing and being better. And it's funny because we are all, it's all a part of growing in our story, and even something you've made 3 years ago and you might not love it, it's still a part of you, which is sometimes hard to accept, but it's, yeah.
And on the flip side too, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm going through a process of writing or creating, I'm so insecure.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is crap, no one's gonna like this, and even when I finish it, it feels like it was this tedious process to get there, and then when I have some space between that project and look back, I'm like, shit, this was good!
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I feel like that can happen too.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the beauty of technology and innovation too. There's so much information at our fingertips, and there's always an audience at your fingertips.
Yeah.
And so I know with even Cleo's work, sometimes the way she takes the temperature of where people are at or where her art is at is through the interaction of just putting it out there, Because at the end of the day, we live in such a fast news cycle that as much as we feel vulnerable in the creation of something, this real privilege to have audiences literally in the palm of your hands allows you also to always have a focus group of some sort.
Yeah.
And so if you can stay open and vulnerable in the creation of art, but really kind of tap into the usefulness of technology, it actually can serve the creative process. And I have found that in our work a lot. It's National Black Theater's Instagram does this daily affirmation, having nothing to do with what we put on our stage. It's just a beautiful picture and a quote,
Right.
And that every morning there's a morning affirmation. And I can't tell you how many people show up to the theater to see a play because the temperature that we set by just throwing these thoughts, ideas, things to collide with, they really respond to. So I think that the other beautiful thing about allowing yourself to find healthy boundaries for your own creativity and vulnerability while accessing technology to be able to help navigate what feels strong or what feels like it could have more work or that didn't land the way my intention for it to land. We can really use it as a tool. And I think that's what's so great about all of these products. I'm finding different ways that I can take the specificity of my voice and my art and find platforms outside of that intimacy.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I like what you were saying about trying something that doesn't fit the mold of maybe the bigger thing that I'm doing. And I think like I definitely run into it. There's like this fear, like, well, is this what I'm supposed to do? Just this is my lane.
Yeah.
And I even though I have an idea over here that's completely different from that, am I even allowed to do that? Should I even put energy there? You know, do you have any of you guys experienced that at all? Or I know we talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about this a little bit earlier too. I think the more I talk about it too, the more I kind of like solidify it with myself. So I need to keep talking about it. But I mean, for so long, I was like strictly photography, photo. It's all I want to do. And I spent so much time getting comfortable with it, and then I finally was comfortable with it, and I was like, oh, I want more. I want something else.
Yeah.
And then realizing that I do want to try film and try writing. It was like kind of a slap in the face because for so long I was like, I don't want that. I made my voice as this photographer, and I want to be here as a photographer and just go with it. And it's just funny because I think like as people who are creative people and artists, we always want more and what's next. And like I haven't really experienced a time where I've been like fully satisfied, which is like super disappointing and super frustrating. But I think it's also exciting because it allows you to transform and be a different person like every day.
Yeah.
I think if I was satisfied, I'd be so bored.
Totally. I know, Alex, you've done digital design, you've done textiles, you've done sculpture. Like, is there something you haven't done yet you really want to do?
I mean, there's so many things I want to do. The funny thing, what happens to me though, is like every year I'm a different person for someone different. Like this year I've been like mural artist. Last year I was a rug person and doing textiles. I feel like people are having like a hard time to understand what I actually do because I do too many things. So this year has been all about murals, and I don't know where it's coming from, but it just like was one mural, and then I got 20 others, and it was just like snowballing. And last year was exactly the opposite. So even though I launched my rugs, a new collection this year too, it was kind of like under the radar. People wouldn't even care that much just because they cared more about the mural work I do. Yeah. And I mean, it would be, I want to really do this because I missed this project that I had, which was involving my community, telling me stories and me visualizing it. Like, I really want to do that as a mural, though. I want to like do like a paint by numbers thing where I just draw it and then invite anyone to come in and just like paint with me, because like I think that's like a collaboration part, and it's actually not like a crazy project. I think I can just do it if I find a wall, and you know, I just haven't had the time to find a wall. But if anyone has a wall for that, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to like do furniture in New York. That's like my biggest struggle because of space. Like it's just like I do make furniture and then I show it and then it's there in my living room. Like it's you know, it's just this. It's like a hard thing. So I think with murals, it's just like murals, rugs, everything is like kind of a reason for me to do because I don't have to store it. Like it's like, So I think depending on where I be in my life, and if it's not New York, maybe I have the chance to do more of like sculpture and objects. Right now it's like kind of like in the back thing, but I always wanted to build a bridge because I know it's the hardest thing to do. So, and I guess our bridges need help, so.
Bridges by Alex Proba. I would like to see what that looks like.
I know, that would be awesome.
I always think about the guy that has to show up, or the woman has to show up to the first day on the job of building a bridge. It's just like water. It's just like, okay, here we go. That's amazing.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
The thing about this is that...
Just one thing.
Yeah. What you're actually talking about is intersectionality, or a part of what we're talking about is intersectionality. And if there is something to drive home, that this idea that we can be so many things and that there isn't one lane, I personally believe is going to save the planet. Yeah. Like the idea that we get to be whole intersectional people in community that have different perspectives, and all of it is okay because it makes us frail and perfect and human and all of these things. Because I think right now we live in such a divisive, kind of polarizing way where like you find a lane and you come in, you know? And it's just not the way the world works. And so by us exploring the other parts of our own creativity, hopefully gives people permission to say, you know, we can take that into every aspect of our lives, because the intersectionality of who we are as individuals and then as community, all of the different intersectionalities really is the bridge, right?
Yeah. Totally, it is.
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that was like so well put. I was gonna like cry or something. It was really good. I love that.
No, it's just like I have a lot of friends being like, oh, I wish I could do what you do. I wish I would be a creative. I wish that. And I'm like, you can still do that in like your own form, and you don't need to be a creative, and you just need to be a person and have the will to do something. And you know, you can like take a photo of your shoes every day and put it up. And I'm just making that up, obviously, but I think everyone is capable of like doing something that changes the world or changes someone's life, and you don't need to be a creative for that. Like,
yeah,
I feel like
I 100% agree. And even if you put something out there and it doesn't blow up into wild success, just the process of putting it down and putting it out there is cathartic and does something for you as the creator. So it's like, it doesn't even matter if it doesn't change the world.
Yeah.
You know, so, and I love this idea of intersectionality, and, you know, because I think sometimes as an artist or a creator, you know, you want to like hold it back till it's perfect and it's never finished. And as soon as you like hand it over to somebody else, you know, even when especially when you're injecting something serious or, you know, therapeutic into your work, it's when you finally can trust someone else to pick it up and respond to it, do you see it in a completely different way.
Yeah.
It changes it and makes it better.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I will just say quickly to that, I had that exact kind of crux in taking over the theater, because the theater had so much legacy, and my mother was this larger-than-life figure. So it's like, it's actually a funny story. At her funeral, Maya Angelou wrote this thing to be read. And it was about how, like, my mom is gone, no one should ever try to fill her shoes. It's like, well, that's a daunting task to, like, show up to work the next day. Like, Maya Angelou says no one can do it, but here I am, you know? Like that kind of thing. And what I realized is, you know, art, institutions, creativity is only a baton to be passed to other people, whether it's just by sheer inspiration, like how many artists do we reference in the way we even create our own art, and that this idea that, you know, everything, if I'm a successful person, what I've done on my best day is created a more passable baton in some way, shape, or form, because inspiration is everywhere, and the things that, you know, you create will be an inspiration to somebody, one person, you know, a community of people. And I think that that becomes essential in removing yourself sometimes from the perfection of it all, because the success is not that the theater exists. The success is that the theater will exist in the future.
Yeah.
That's great. I love that.
Do we want to do questions? Yeah. So we have a few more minutes, so we can do some questions for our guests up here. If anyone has a question, we've got a mic ready.
I'm not an artist at all, so I kind of find it interesting, the idea of switching different mediums. Like, you know, if you started off doing something in a more physical medium and then transition to something more digital and something online, does that affect your creativity in some sort of way, or do you find it easier to branch off into something else that you might not have done if it was not digital?
I'm in my second year of art school right now at Parsons, and my first year I came into school and everybody I was in school with had gone to art high schools and had practiced everything, and I was like, oh, I'm here and all I do is photo. Like, this is really crazy because I'm in a drawing class and these people are great at everything. And that was really, really stressful for me because I was like, I only know this one thing. And I still am very like passionate about photo, but I think trying different things, it's really awesome, because what I've found with myself when I try to write or when I try to make film or whatever I do that's different from just photography, I find that it's always has that same sense of myself. And it's always, I think the coolest thing about being a person who is an artist, you always, like, whatever your voice is, it's gonna peek itself out in whatever you do. Whether it's like, whether I'm drawing, I'm not a great drawer or at all, but whatever I'm doing, I can always see that little like sense of myself, and it's scary. I think we think that going into a different medium is going to totally change who we are as a person. I feel like a lot of it is in our head because we're just programmed to think that we can only be one thing, because branding is such a thing and being having a title is such a thing. But it's awesome trying out different mediums and trying different things, because you're always the same person.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it is with my experience.
Yeah, and I feel like I do that a lot with just like translating like the digital world into like the physical. So I don't really do it the other way around. Mostly it's like it starts on a computer or on a sketchbook, and then it becomes this mural, or it becomes a sculpture, it becomes anything. But I actually, a lot of my work that I do is I sketch it digitally always, and then mostly share it and see the reaction of people. And then sometimes I actually decide to make that into a real thing. And for me, it's like scary at the same time as like really like amazing, and like it's kind of like giving birth to something. It like feels really weird, but it's just like I have a series where I just sketch a lot of objects. It's called Unborn Objects, and I just like create all these weird objects that I think would be cool things, and then I pick some of them and actually try to make them. And I think that's like the scary part, but it's also the part that I think we just like are losing a little bit in the world of like digital. And like we can sketch on like the Pixelbook, we can sketch on the phone, we can do anything digitally. And I think there's, for a lot of people also with 3D, like there's no real reason to have photo shoots anymore, because you can just visualize it in 3D.
Right.
And I do that as well because it's awesome. But I think like coming back to the analog and coming back to the real and tactile is like, that's what gives me like, oh man, this works, this is actually a real thing. Because I grew up actually without a computer, like in the first years of my teenage life, and I know what it means like not have a computer. And I kind of like sometimes battle in between, because I used to like paint way more when I was younger, and now, I mean, I paint a lot now, but I didn't paint for a while because I could just do the same thing on the computer. And I feel like for me, I need that. I need the translation, and sometimes it doesn't work out, and it's like really nice on the computer and really bad in real life. But at least know that, and you tried that, and I don't know, even that failure gives you like some kind of like, I don't know, like
I don't know
appreciation
about all
to
of
it.
you, but like for me, it's like the fear like stops me from going forward. But I find if I just ask for help, ask someone that has touched it, ask someone that's done it, I usually get pointed, connected, something sparks and keeps it going. And I think Google's all about kind of putting something in and connecting or asking for help or finding out how to do whatever it is. But thank you all so much for joining us. You are all amazing and inspiring. I'm inspired. I hope you all are too. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and that's it. Thank you.
Amazing.